Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Ashanti Gholar, the president of Emerge, and we are here for another Races to Watch Live. We have been going live at the top of every hour since 10 a.m. Eastern, and we end at 7 p.m. Eastern. And I'm really pumped for our next conversation. We're going to be focusing on the power of AAPI voters with Linh, Nguyen, and Bennet, the co-founders of Run AAPI. Thank you both for taking the time to join us on a busy election day. Chloe's in LA, Linh is out in Atlanta, Georgia, and we know that AAPI voters are going to have a big impact on the election. So first, I want to start by having you both tell us what drew you to creating Run AAPI, especially during this year where we've seen so much going on, not only politically, but a lot of anti-Asian sentiment as well with the coronavirus.
Yeah, well, so Run kind of came about in a very, I spoke at a White House event 4 years ago when Obama was still in office, but Trump had just won. And there I met Brad Jenkins, who had formerly worked at the White House with Obama. And it was just kind of this very depressing, if I'm being honest, event where it was supposed to be this kind of celebration of AAPI and moving forward with our first female president and with, and it was not that. And Brad and I ended up talking and really kind of didn't feel like the space that the space of AAPI politically and culturally was not being represented. We didn't feel like we were represented as Asian Americans. We didn't feel like we were seen politically. We didn't feel like we were seen from a cultural standpoint. So it kind of started as a social, kind of a social gathering of sorts to bridge, Asian AAPI tastemakers and culture, the culture side of things with the political side of things. So that's kind of where it started. And then this year, obviously, has been a transformative year for, I think, everyone. And we obviously, we brought Linh on and we got to work. Linh, do you want to speak about kind of what we've been doing this year?
Yeah, and I mean it's been wild, Ashanti. I mean, for those that do know me a little more intimately, I mean my background has only been on campaigns, only been on political campaigns, and so joining Run as their political director, we knew 2020 was going to be a big year for Asian Pacific American voters. We knew that, and we knew that because we've been putting in the years for this kind of groundwork. But I felt like the biggest missing piece was understanding the cultural differences between whether there's sub-ethnic groups, between what we do on the campaign side, what we do on the entertainment side, the creative side. There wasn't this space where these different industries were coming together, right? And so that's why joining Run, it's okay, we knew in 2020 we needed to do something a little different that was going to engage with the younger 18 to 34-year-old Asian American voter.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's culture affects politics. Politics affects culture. And for me, it was always what was interesting is we did a poll this year, and the biggest barrier to voting was motivation. And a lot of people that was surprised for AAPI youth, and for a lot of people that was surprising, but weirdly that made sense to me because it's that thing where if you don't feel represented in culture, in politics, if you don't see that representation, and if those campaigns aren't speaking to you, why would you value you're not going to value your vote because you don't think you're represented, you don't think you matter. So it's really about bridging, this political information. And honestly, there's a really big gap with making sure young people get accurate information about what's going on in local politics. I mean, obviously for the presidential campaign, it's an intimidating space. you kind of have to have a working knowledge of so many different things. And for young people, that's really intimidating. And what we want to do at Run is create content that's digestible for people that are young and who are obviously particularly Asian, and in a way that's not condescending and that makes sense.
Yeah. And y'all's content has been amazing. I want to talk about that. These videos are so good. So can you tell us a little bit about the content that you have created, and what have you seen with it really driving young people not only to the polls, but really wanting to be civically engaged, finding their space in politics? Lynn and I just did a conversation on the Brown Girls Guide to Politics about this, that we just don't want our communities to be voters. We want them to be actively engaged, and we want them to be at the center of this power as well, because we know that's when we start to see the real change.
Chloe, so like, y'all should know, I come from like such a strict and traditional political background. Chloe she just knows how to finesse what I'm trying to do, that has like a broader appeal. Yeah, and I'm like super grateful for that balance. But Chloe, no, jump in.
Lynn's my rock star. So I played a superhero on TV. Lynn's a real superhero. I mean, look, we wanted to make content that young AAPI potential voters or registered people could look and feel motivated. You know, there wasn't. I'm very motivated by. I'm obviously in the industry. I'm very motivated by storytelling and by seeing something like a really good commercial, a really good trailer that pumps you up. And I really wanted to see something that, you know, it's a very specific battle to bring this community together. There's so much diversity within the API community. There's generational diversity that addresses, you know, what kind of tradition people have in their families with how engaged they are politically. There's literal ethnic diversity. We have to be hyper specific, but also very broad, because we all may come from different backgrounds, but we are in the same voting block. So that was kind of the narrative we wanted to tell, was to say, hey, we all might be really different, but we want a young Korean boy to look up at Kamala, who is half Indian, and see himself in her. And how do we create content that does that without taking itself too seriously, and being very self-aware, and inspirational. And so that was kind of the motivation behind the content that we were making. And also, I mean, and Lynn, you can speak to this, you know, it's been a very difficult time for Asian Americans in our country. And we're kind of trying to speak to different topics, I guess, Lynn.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's been like, when we're engaging with Asian Pacific American voters, and like Chloe mentioned, it's such a broad and complex group of communities, right? And like, I think what's so interesting is like, and we get asked this all the time, it's like, okay, well, like, as Asian Americans, like, what do y'all care about? Like, what is like your issue, right? And even like asking that question is so hard to answer, because one, it's just so one-dimensional, and two, it's just, it doesn't give us the chance to really understand like how we even identify as API. What does it even mean to consider ourselves as Asian Americans? And so you typically don't see that kind of messaging or that content coming from the political campaign side. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to cast that net so far, so wide. And I think it's been interesting. I mean, like, even like the organic traction that we're seeing with our content, people joining our events who've like never done this before, let alone have never phone banked before, never text banked before. We just hosted an event in Texas the other night. We did the same thing in Georgia, and like we were able to connect with thousands of voters, of Asian American voters in each of these respective states. And like, these are people who've never done this work before with us, you know. And like, that's like exactly what we had envisioned for Run in 2020, is like we really have to like take a step back and understand, okay, why is it that we've never had this kind of visibility before, right? Or like, how is it that this narrative for AAPI is like actual democratic, like power? How can we manifest that in the work that we're doing with Run?
I think it's interesting because there's obviously there's so much political activity on social media and all these different forms of media. And as someone who takes in a lot of content, as a millennial, I'm the demographic. I'm part of the demographic, and I'm also new to this space. You know, it's been interesting. I've gotten a lot more people calling me about, you know, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I go, oh, all of a sudden I'm this political person. But what I feel like has worked, and what I think has really resonated with people is we're kind of authentically approaching this as, like, for me, I'm learning alongside with you how to text bank. I'm doing this too. I also find politics intimidating. I also feel like this, timid to speak up on certain things. And that's kind of privately what I've gotten a lot of messages from people saying, I really want to get involved, but I'm intimidated by the process. I'm intimidated. I don't want to look stupid if I post something and I don't want to say something. I don't want to engage in a conversation with a loved one and feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. So it's really like authentic content and authentic engagement, and not trying to, be like, everyone's learning here, especially this year.
Right.
We're taking it one day at a time. And I think that's resonating with people.
It's resonated so well. And I absolutely think that candidates and campaigns need to pay attention to the work that you all are doing. So what would you say to them, these campaigns, about making sure that they're authentically engaging the AAPI community? We know our organizations are super important, but they also need to be centering our communities as well.
Yeah, I mean, Lynn could say there's, most campaign copy budgets are higher than their budget to reach AAPI. And I think it's kind of with all, any minority group or any group that's, you can feel that when any engagement isn't authentic, when it's last minute, when it's kind of, when you're throwing the scraps. We've felt that a lot this election.
Yeah.
It's been shocking.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think this is why, like in the last couple of weeks, while early voting has, or before early voting had wrapped up, like we are seeing unprecedented numbers in like record turnout among AAPI voters. And I think what's going to be so interesting is how campaigns choose to move forward. Like watching, okay, they're a real community. They're going to turn out. They are real voters. They're going to exercise this right to vote. And I think, and what's so sad is that I feel like it's taken a lot of campaigns to this point to actually need to see, okay, if we invest X amount into this community, this is going to be the reward that we're going to see at the end, and I feel like 2020 is finally our year to be like, okay, like we can't be launching these outreach programs like 3 months before election day begins. I think now we're at a really important, critical time that we're going to see that shift. I truly believe that.
There's so many crucial swing states where the AAPI vote could be the deciding factor. And exactly. The fact is, we have been very much in this space, and it's been hard to get people to get motivated. All of the work that we're doing is really with grassroots organizations and really like depending on people who've never really engaged. There's kind of a reversal of tradition with I've learned a lot of AAPI. I mean, a lot of families have a tradition of, kids watch their parents vote, their parents talk to them about politics. It's this, there's a lot of families in the AAPI community who don't have that, whose parents are immigrated here. It's reversal where the kids are teaching their parents about, the government, and there's all these new beautiful traditions that are, we want to inspire, new tradition, for the kids to take their parents to talk to their aunties and uncles and extended family about this country that, they've had the privilege of like really calling their own in a way that their parents might not have, had. So that's been really special. And I hope that campaigns tap into, there's like an extreme, we want to be involved. We want to be engaged with. I think that's what we've learned a lot from talking to people. We want to be engaged, but I think that our voices will be heard, hopefully, this election, and
I think so too.
That will change.
You inspired these new traditions, a new generation to get politically engaged with Run AAPI. So what is your hope for this new generation that you've inspired to keep going? What is your desire to see? What will they change about AAPI involvement in American politics?
Lynn?
Oh, I have so much to say.
You have a long list. Me too.
I mean, okay, well, one, and like maybe more selfishly, I really do hope that by bringing in this like new generation of like young Asian American activists and organizers and community leaders, I want people to run for office. I really do. And it's like, it just, I think like in the last few years, last few cycles, like we've seen such a wild difference in who is choosing to run for office, women of color that are choosing to run for office. And that's like, and I feel like we're seeing that take place in the primary, like this new kind of energy, right? And when we see new people choosing to run for office, it brings in new voters as well. And I think that's like my one like greatest hope out of, you know, what we do with Run and people that are choosing to jump in with us for the first time. Like, I hope that they deeply feel like, okay, like this is my, like, I truly feel like I could represent my community in such a unique way and that others just simply can't, or like, this is the story that resonates with so many of my peers, like that, this is something I want to carry, you know, perhaps to a different level. But that, Chloe, is like one of my hopes.
I mean, that's really what it is. I want to instill confidence in our community in all ways. That is to just care about themselves enough to vote, to encourage, to be confident enough to speak about it to their family and their friends, to be confident, going all the way up to be confident enough to run. I mean, exactly what you're saying, which is, you know, I wish our community had the confidence of every mediocre straight white guy in this country.
Luck.
Yes.
Like,
that's all that we want.
Right.
Because that's what I wish. I mean,
we talk about that all the time at Emerge. Like, if these men
grant us
to you too can be on the city council, county commission, heck, you can even be president. So
unbelievable. I'm like, where do you know? And you know where they get that from? They get that from being represented. They get that because in culture, in everywhere you look around, who are the superheroes? Who have been the leading roles? Who do we see all the time? Who's the center of attention? When you are told your whole life that you are not the star, that you are not the hero, that you are not the savior, you don't imagine that for yourself. So it's really on us to take that narrative back. And that's what we want to do at Run. We want to change the narrative of what it means to be Asian American. Yeah.
You are absolutely changing the narrative. Both of you are my heroes. Thank you so much for this amazing organization, Run AAPI. Tell everyone how they can follow and get more involved.
We're on Instagram. We're on all the social media platforms. Come say hi. We're doing, you know, live events, and we're here. We're not going away after today. This is just the beginning.
Yeah. I want everyone, if everyone can find us, it's the handle's really easy. It's at Run AAPI. That's Facebook, that's Twitter, that's Instagram. I would love for everyone to follow us.
Yep. Give them a follow. I'm following Chloe, Lynn. Thank you so much. Appreciate you both. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. And we'll see you at the top of the next hour for the next Races to Watch Live.
Ashanti, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you both. Bye, everyone.